Well, the Republican field of presidential candidates is getting smaller. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker dropped out of the race yesterday. Carly Fiorina is moving toward the top of the pack after her performance at the most recent Republican debate last week. She's now in second place after Donald Trump. Now, the most recent CNN poll taken over the weekend shows Trump's numbers are dropping. His popularity stands at 24%. Fiorina's is at 15%. Ben Carson, who will be in Sharonville later today, is right behind her with 14%. Then you got Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush following. Now, with me now is the chairman of the Hamilton County Republican Party, Alex Triantifilou, to talk about that pool of candidates. And full disclosure, Alex was once my adjunct professor at Chase College of Law, and our sons were both in the same Cub Scout pack together. But
good to see you, Bob.
Nothing on rules of evidence or Pinewood Derby cars today.
That's terrific.
I promise. It's such a busy time, and I mentioned that sort of right out of the chute. I can't remember an election, at least in recent memory, where there seemed to be this much going on this early in the race.
It feels that way to me as well. You know, we with so many different candidates, so many different storylines. Of course, Donald Trump has drawn so much attention to the process.
Right.
He's probably one of the factors that's at play here in making this such a sort of a show early on in the process.
And when I reached out to you last week, I had mentioned it felt like the kind of time where people were probably going to start dropping out. Some of those people who were sort of not pulling those percentages on the recent polls. We saw that yesterday from Governor Walker. In fact, we've got some sound as he encouraged some of his fellow Republicans to do the same.
I encourage other Republican presidential candidates to consider doing the same so that the voters can focus on a limited number of candidates who can offer a positive, conservative alternative to the current frontrunner.
What do you make of that? Fair statement? Is it time to see some of those other folks that are sort of at the back of the pack start to fall off?
I think that's probably a fair statement. You know, someone like Scott Walker, though, Bob, he probably drops out because he can be viable in the future. And instead of staying in a race like this and then losing, you know, and having his good name damaged somewhat in this process, it probably makes sense for him to get out early. I sort of predicted privately to friends that he might be the next one to go.
Really?
Because I thought he would need to preserve himself for a future run for president or maybe something else.
Well, and he's a guy who's been through so many political battles. Are you surprised that his campaign didn't go a little bit better?
I am surprised, frankly. He was leading in Iowa for a long period. He was an early front runner for us. He has the exact kind of resume, but in a year where it seems the outsider is doing well in both parties, Bob, no surprise here that maybe somebody who has been on the ballot multiple times, a longtime governor, maybe is going to struggle a little bit.
Well, and like you mentioned, top three on the Republican side, of course, all people from, you know, outside of politics, and that certainly seems to be playing well with people. You mentioned the popularity, of course, Donald Trump, but do some of those people at the back of the pack see what Carly Fiorina has done, not just in the big debate, but even in the undercard debate, if you will? Do they see her success and be able to move up and think, maybe I've still got a shot if in the next one I can sort of stand out like she did?
The answer is yes. These debates are offering a real alternative, a real possibility for some of these other candidates. And, you know, there's a belief among the party faithful that eventually Donald Trump will drop off, that eventually the front runner will come back to the pack and there will be a clear shot for someone who's a more traditional candidate. That may or may not be true. We'll see what the voters decide in Iowa, New Hampshire, and other places, but I think there is this desire by those folks to do well in those debates, so maybe they've got a shot if Trump ultimately falls off.
Now, Ben Carson in town in Sharonville.
Yes, he is.
Obviously, some of his comments over the weekend, his belief that a Muslim should not be president, are, I think, going to dog him for a while. What do you think he'll have to say to people in the tri-state today, and how long will that statement, do you think, follow him?
You know, it's following him again this morning. I think he doubled down on it the other day. My guess is he'll address it today. We'll see. But, you know, Bob, what's most interesting to me is that we are once again the hotbed for presidential politics here in Southwest Ohio. This is a critical swing state, so no surprise at all that Ben Carson was here. Hillary Clinton was here 2 weeks ago, right? So these people are going to have to come through Southwest Ohio in this region if they want to be elected president in the general election.
And I need to wrap things up, but I do want to ask you very quickly about our governor, John Kasich. How do you feel like he's doing? Do you think he's in for the long haul?
He's doing very well. He's second in New Hampshire, raising money very effectively. He's very strong in New Hampshire right now.
All right, Alex, thank you so much for coming in.
Good to be with you, Bob.
It's great to see you. Hopefully throughout the process we can talk to you a little bit more.
Love to do it.
Okay, Sheila, back over to you.